Victory, I just got a victory. I just got another victory. Opposition said they sick of me. We turn their future to history. They try to hit me, they missing me. Ooh, they in the way. They getting stepped on back in the day. We who they slept on. You see my place. It's never.
And what's going on, Knicks Nation? Welcome back. Welcome back to Sheer Brilliance Knicks. I decided to do this impromptu live just to go over a couple of things. I know I didn't have an opportunity to do a Knicks Daily Edition because our team lost a tough game against the Timberwolves. Didn't have to necessarily be so tough, but we're going to get into that a little bit later as well. But let me just start off by saying welcome. Welcome to my channel. My name is Shir. I'm your host of Sheer Brilliance Knicks. And you already know we are first to many. We're second to none when it comes to our team views, the who's who connected to our New York Knicks. So you're in the right place for Knicks content. If you are new to my channel, do me a favor. First and foremost, thank you for visiting. Hit that subscribe button. Also, click the likes if you like what it is that you're hearing so that you're well aware of any new video or new content that I drop. Also, understand that I'm on Instagram at SB Knicks, and I'm also on Twitter at SB Knicks. So look me up, give me a follow, and let's do this Knicks thing together. Thank you for joining the SB community. All right. Now, if you're returning to the channel, my SB community, you already know we roll deep in this piece. So welcome back. I appreciate you. You're loyal. Okay. So you've been with me on this journey. Let's help continue to build this thing up, raise this thing up, and do this thing as we support our New York Knicks. Okay. And for those of you who are not necessarily the supporters, you're not necessarily part of the SB community, but you're an appreciator of good content and good dialogue and good debate. I like to call y'all the ops. So if you're the ops, I see you too. I see you in the comment section waiting to disagree. And guess what? You rocking with the best, baby. So I hope you're ready. Okay? I want you to absolutely engage. This channel isn't just for those people who are in agreement with me. If you have an opposing opinion, that's 100%. You're right. All right? If you're a friend of NBA basketball, you belong here too. So friend or foe, we want the smoke. And the smoke is exactly what we're bringing to you today, courtesy of several topics regarding our New York Knicks. So welcome. All right? Welcome. So what I want to do today, first and foremost, well, first off, let me say this. For those of our brothers and sisters who are opening up the holy month of Ramadan, I want to say Ramadan Mubarak to you. You know, my best wishes of health, wealth, and a successful Ramadan throughout this month for you and your families. But next, I want to join the rest of Knicks Nation by sending out the condolences to the family of the captain, Willis Reed, an absolute icon and legend, and just a family member of the New York Knicks nation, a key legendary piece to our championship teams here in New York, and someone who, you know, as Knicks Nation, as you grow in, maybe the younger generation don't know him as much. What I recall about Willis Reed, I didn't know him in terms of being able to watch him, but as I began to be a Knicks fan in 93 and 94, from that point, that was around the time that Patrick Ewing was breaking a lot of the records and moving up slowly but surely in Knicks lore. And a lot of those records he began to break were Willis Reed's. So with Patrick being one of my favorite players, something that I paid attention to very closely was how did Willis Reed, this guy who was known as the captain, and now Patrick Ewing is like the new captain, how is he going to feel now that Patrick is breaking some of his records? And it's very appropriate to this time because LeBron recently broke Kareem's record, and LeBron is a Laker now, and Kareem was a legendary Laker. And there was a lot of talk about how Kareem responded to LeBron breaking that record, which is obviously so much, the pinnacle of historic. But you understand what I'm saying in terms of I was kind of looking at Willis Reed, who my parents revered and a lot of Knicks Nation revered, and how he treated this guy who is now my favorite player as the superstar, Patrick Ewing. And something that I will always remember is it was absolute class. It was nothing but class as Patrick began to move up the scoring ranks, the rebound ranks, the blocks ranks, and really, as he ended his career, had a lot of the top records in the organization. When they would put the microphone, anytime they put the microphone up to Willis Reed and ask him what he thought about Patrick Ewing and his accomplishments, this man was 100% class, had nice, wonderful things to say, and even would refer to Patrick as the top Knicks player in history and the number one center in Knicks history. And I thought that was so classy. It's one of those things where, and this is why we give LeBron so much stuff, you don't have to declare it yourself. You know what I mean? Other people will respect your game. And Patrick, as he always did, was saying, that's a lot coming from the best center in New York Knicks history, this, that, and the third. So they were exchanging the praise. But I'll never forget that. That meant a lot to me as a new Knicks fan, a relatively young Knicks fan whose favorite player was Patrick Ewing, that this guy who was the centerpiece, who battled and defeated Kareem, battled and defeated Wilt, had that historic, return from injury in the locker room that helped propel that team motivation-wise to the championship. That meant a lot to me. So even when I heard about the passing, I texted my pops and I told him, I said, you hear about it? And he said, yeah, he said, rest in peace, legend. So that's what I will encapsulate, these remarks on Willis Reed, and just say, rest in peace, legend. Truly a captain, and he's going to be sorely missed by Knicks Nation and the Knicks Nation community. So salute to him as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into this. I don't want to take up too much time. I might take the hour, though, before the game, because I didn't comment on the Timberwolves loss. I didn't comment on Jules dropping 57 in the Garden in the Mecca. And you let Knicks Twitter tell it, and they're telling it accurately. It was in a loss, but we're going to get into that, all right? But before we get into anything, what I always like to do is shout out Knicks Nation, all right? Shout out the SB community. And I do that, as we all know, by Shir's top 5, dead or alive. So this is when I talk about who's Shir's top 5 for this video in Knicks Nation. And we're going to go a little something like this. First and foremost, number 1 is the SB community. Wait a second. This isn't mine. Give me 1 second. I'm struggle streaming right now. Let me see. There we go. So Shir's top 5 today. Number 1 is Surreal Mookie. Shout out to you, Surreal Mookie. If you are a fan of battle rap, this is the number 1 battle rap channel on YouTube. Check out Surreal Mookie for the top news and keeping up with everything that's going on in the world of battle rap. Go to Surreal Mookie and support that channel. Number 2 is Germ Warfare. Shout out to you. Number 3 is Banks Money. Shout out to you as well. Number 4 is V's. And number 5 is Jamel Rivera. Shout out to you. You are Shir's top 5, dead or alive, here at SB Knicks. Shout out to you. All right, now let's get into it. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about today. It is a big game tonight. Knicks Nation. The New York Knicks will be battling the Miami Heat. And yes, this is a revenge game, all right? If we looked at the game between the Timberwolves and the New York Knicks the other night, And we knew that that was a trap game. Many of us called it and said, you know what, this is really one of those trap game opportunities that the New York Knicks usually run into. This is not one of them. This is a game that the New York Knicks are well aware that they're going to have to bring their best if they plan on leaving this game with a victory. This is the clear piece. The New York Knicks are going to have to be on top of their game when they're going against this Miami Heat team for several reasons. First and foremost, they're going to have to do it because this is one of our rivals. They have what it is that we want. And what I mean by that is the respect position. They have the respect position. They've been on top of their game for a number of years now. The Miami Heat, we used to be able to consider a rival, but very easily they can look at us and be like, listen, y'all ain't no rivals. We've won championships. We've won championships since the 90s. So you're not really a rival until you do something. So in our mind, they're a rival, but they can really easily little bro us and be well within their right to do so. So this is a big game always when we face the Miami Heat, always. But it's going to be in particular tonight. It's going to be a big game tonight. The second reason is this is a revenge game. Oh, yeah. We embarrassed the Miami Heat. Emmanuel quickly was galloping and dancing and prancing all over the court. Tyler Hero was no hero in that game. All of the heroics went to Julius Randle, all right? Randle had one of the best moments in the NBA this season, and it was at the expense of these Miami Heat. So you can rest assured it's not going to be a cakewalk. Something that we probably need to expect is for this team to come out strong. Come out strong today. We need to be able to match that energy. You know that they're focused. They were embarrassed. And they were embarrassed on national television by the New York Knicks in their home. So 100%, this is a huge game that has many ramifications. It's playoff positioning. It's bragging rights. Can we beat them 2 in a row? All right. Can we overcome the heaviness and the loss of one of our own, Willis Reed, to get this, secure this important victory? Can we bounce back from a game in which we should have won and we should have been looking at possible 5-game win streak today? Can we bounce back from that Timberwolves loss and right the ship and get this victory? This is what we're going to be looking at. This is why tonight's game is a huge game. Very important that we solidify our status in the standings. All right. So I'm excited for this game tonight. I'm really, really excited for this game tonight. It's always good when you can sweep. I don't know if we swept Miami, but this will be 2 games in a row that we beat them. It'll be saying a lot. It'll once again continue to solidify that the New York Knicks are relevant and are not to be messed with going into this final stretch of the season and into the playoffs. All right. It'll further solidify that teams don't want to play us. That when you play, this will be like a playoff game because we just beat them and we're playing them again. So when you talk about the best out of 4 and, best of 5 and best of 7, these games that we're playing against teams for a second and a third time, this is like a playoff. This is going to be like a playoff feel. If you've noticed it, most of the games this season that the New York Knicks have played have felt like playoff games. They felt like playoff atmosphere. This is what I love about this team. We're never really blown out, or when we're always either keeping the score close or we're winning by large margins or we're losing by small margins. So every team, every game that we play is a grit and grind, rough and tumble, but you're going to know that you played us type of game. This is what I love, and I expect that tonight. I expect for it to be a playoff type of atmosphere against the Miami Heat. So that's what I'm looking forward to today in tonight's game. But something I wanted to do different. This is in the SB Live, but something I wanted to do a little bit different was answer some of the questions that I received from the Sheer Brilliance community, my SB community. I wanted to get some of y'all questions. So this is what I'm going to call the SB mailbag. Just going to do a little something different today and give a shout out to the SB community. This is the SB community mailbag time. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the questions that you guys had. But before I jump into that, let me give a shout out to these comments real quick. My guy, Rabbi Untalin, says Heat, Miami Heat. Listen, let's go. Let's go. Look at friend or foe, we want the smoke. So join us. It should be a good game. Do you agree? You know, talk to me a little bit about your Heat. If you have a question for the Knicks, if you're a Heat fan, I don't know if you're a Heat fan, but if you are, if you have any questions, throw them questions up there, man. Let's engage. I love that. I love that. But it should be a good game tonight, and we expecting to win. The New York Knicks are expecting to get this victory. I'm just letting you know. But if you have any reasons as to why not, let me know. I love that. Welcome. So what I want to do is I'll start off with the first question from SB Community. And the question comes from my guy, Blaze1BX. And he says, has RJ improved? Now, I think at this point in time, with the last few games that we've seen, I think a lot of us would agree that RJ has improved. It's taken a while for him to get there in terms of feeling comfortable to assert his game on the game, especially as of recently with the trade of Josh Hart to the team. I think a lot goes into when you have movement on the team. I think a lot goes into when you have new pieces on the team. And I think this is still RJ's first season with the new point guard, with new players, Hartenstein and Josh Hart added to the team and to the chemistry. Also, when you have an emergence of players, so Julius is still back in his bag and he's commanding the number of touches he has, as well as you have Jalen Brunson added to the team. So as a point guard who has the capability and the ability to score, then now he commands a lot of touches as well. So I'm curious, I don't know what those numbers are, but I'm curious to see if the number of touches that RJ receives are down this season from last season, where he and Julius were given a lot of the responsibility for ball handling because we had, subpar point guard play. All right. So there has to be an adjustment with that. Notwithstanding he's a young player, he's still a pro and he's still experienced. He's a young vet now. But there's an adjustment to when you have a point guard who is as impactful as Jalen Brunson has been this season, and then you had the resurgence of Julius Randle, which is also a tremendous impact to this team, that RJ has to find out where he is. Okay, so I will say, yes, RJ has shown improvement. His scoring didn't drop off. He did have the little bit of lull in the season that made you kind of question where his game was. But as has been the case, he has lifted his game and he's shown signs of finishing strong every year after the All-Star break. And this year isn't any different. So kudos to RJ with respect to that. That's something else that he's shown. The last few games, he's had strong games. And he's showing the same thing that's been the pattern. He's been finishing strong. All right. So I do think RJ has improved. I think the playoffs for this entire team is also going to be a measuring stick. At this point, they've shown enough consistency that we know this team has a winning capability. All right. This team has an ability to win. This team has an ability to win a playoff series. They've shown that. They've shown the ability to beat playoff level teams. They've shown the ability to play at a high level. So with that being said, the players that were in the playoffs 2 years ago, it's going to be a lot to be said about them. What is it that have they grown in 2 years? What have they learned? Have they been able to learn tips and tricks on how to deal with the pressure of winning in New York? It was all new 2 years ago. They had the luxury and the protection of the bubble, the NBA bubble, in finishing that NBA season. And the fans returned a little bit towards the tail end of that season and into the playoffs. And I really just don't think they knew how to deal with the fan support and that pressure that comes with being able to produce the same level of success you had in the bubble in front of the fans. Now, 2 years have gone by, and they have a quality point guard who's also a leader, the leader of the team, the best player on the team. All right? I know Julius does what he does. Jalen Brunson is the best player on the team, and that's great to have at your point guard position. Okay? So those questions need to be answered by not only RJ, but by Julius, by Emmanuel Quickley, by Mitch Robinson, by Obi Toppin. Have you learned the lesson? Are you going to show your level of improvement when it really counts in the playoffs? So I'm really excited about that. But if you ask me just to answer the question about whether or not RJ's improved, I say he has. I think many of us wanted him to take the next level step, and he still has time. As long as the regular season is here, as long as we make the playoffs, until the season is officially over, I think this question is going to be incomplete. I think it's going to take a little bit to see, all right, whether or not RJ is truly improved. Let's see what he does in the playoffs. Let's see what he does at for the rest of the NBA regular season. All right. So thank you, Blaze1BX, for that question. Got that out of the way. Next up, we have my guy, Tay Mack. Tay Mack asked, does Josh Hart remind you of John Starks? Listen, I think they're two different types of players, but the energy and the passion, I don't know if you guys take a look at my short that I created where it was Hart versus Starks. I didn't mean that to be competitive, but I knew it would grab eyeballs. So I was clout chasing a little bit right there. I'll admit I was clout chasing a little bit. But I love the fact he does. Yes, the answer to your question, he does. All right, you're not crazy. It says crazy or no, because you were saying, is it me? Am I crazy? Or does Josh Hart remind you of John Starks? Listen, when I really began falling in love with the New York Knicks, it was in the 90s. And it was with the story that John Starks came with and the way he played basketball. He wasn't the most talented. He wasn't the most athletic. He was a small guard in a league that had big guards, Clyde Drexler, Ron Harper, Michael Jordan. All of these guards were like 6'6" or above. And I think John Starks came in at about 6'2". At least I think they may have had him listed at 6'3", but he was like 6 foot or 6'1". But this man was all heart. He was all heart, and he embodied the city. He embodied the New York Knicks. Listen, it gave me pride every time he would make a big play. He wasn't the best shooter. He was inconsistent. But he played with heart, and he came through in big-time spots. He hit the floor. That whole team would hit the floor. Scrappy. His style of play, you couldn't leave that game after watching him and didn't think that man was from New York. He was straight out of Oklahoma, but you swore that he was from New York because of his style of play. And that's what I see from Josh Hart. Josh Hart does the little things that you need to win in the playoffs. He does the little things that are solidified and that you see highlighted in documentaries for championship teams making championship runs. That's why it's not unusual. That's why if you look at a lot of my videos, I'm already talking about championship possibilities. And people were calling me crazy when I said it in the summertime. People were calling me crazy when I said the way the New York Knicks front office is piecing this team together. It's reminding me of the Golden State Warriors. I said that. I said it look, do your Googles. Check my channel, check my videos, date it, and compare it to any other content creators who said that they seen the New York Knicks compared to Golden State Warriors. I was the first one to put it out there. I'm talking my talk. And I got receipts for it. But Josh Hart is doing those little things. At the very beginning of the season, I know I said this on a previous video, but I'm going to say it again. At the very beginning of the season, as I'm looking at all of the spots, and we were talking about how deep this team was. One thing I said I thought that we were missing was that dog. that player that was the scrap player that's going to get you the second chance opportunities, that player that was the player that would dive on the floor or disrupt the other team defensively. I said, we don't have a Joakim Noah on this team. We don't have a Pat Beverly on this team. We don't have a Joakim Noah on this team. And then the New York Knicks will go out and make this type of move. When they made the move for Hartenstein, I said, that's a great move. It's a backup position. The guy has scoring ability in terms of that little floating hook, and he's relentless rebounding. He's not inactive. He doesn't play invisible minutes. That man makes you feel him while he's inside of the game. So that was a great move. But when he pulled off this Josh Hart move, man, and his first game in the Garden, the man was pounding his chest like this is our house while the Nets were on the other side. Come on, man. Come on, man. That's what you need. That was his introduction. He was so hyped, quickly pushed him in the back like, yeah, this your first game and you talking that talk? And that's the perception that it was his first game. But you don't know that man is from Villanova. His championships were won on the Garden floor. So he's already like, yo, this is my home. I'm back. Y'all know me. Y'all know who I am. So I love that. Yes. Yes, Josh Hart reminds me of John Starks. You are not crazy. My guy Tay Mack, you are not crazy. He does remind me of John Starks. And I love that because it shows that, look, y'all keep thinking these cats are crazy. Keep thinking these cats are crazy. Tom Thibodeau said, I want to build this thing out like Pat Riley built his culture in Miami. So you know that we give credit to the front office, but Tom Thibodeau's in on those conversations. He is lockstep with them. So we got to give him credit as well. I love it. They've assembled a contending team. A contending team. Only part left is for them to do their part and upset some people. Change these narratives. All right? So, yes, second mailbag question goes to T Mac, and he asks, does Josh Hart remind you of John Starks? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. We're going to go to the next question. We have from Mike Lilly. Mike Lilly, my guy Mike Lilly, he says, do we still need a killer sharpshooter to lock down playoff games? And I know that question wasn't framed as a question, but he basically was saying like, yo, listen, I still think we are a sharpshooter away from really racking up these playoff victories. And my response to that is, I don't know. My response to that is, I think it might be too early to say that. You know, we got shooters on our team that could get very hot. We got shooters on our team who could get very hot. We got Jalen Brunson. We got Julius Randle. We got Emmanuel Quickley. 3 shooters who can go on a tear in the game with and Quentin Grimes. So we got 4 shooters who have an ability to end the game with more than 4 3-point shots. The question is, will they show up during the playoffs? So I think to answer your question, I'd say you say, do we still need a killer sharpshooter to lock down playoff games? I say for now, no. I think that's to be seen when the playoffs hit and we see how they perform, how we have our current roster, how they perform in the playoffs this year. I think it'll be a great question to ask after the playoffs are over. All right. So thank you for that question, Mike. And if you're just joining the channel or if you're watching this, after the live goes, welcome to the Sheer Brilliance Knicks. We're looking at SB community mailbag. So these are questions from members of the SB community. And the next question I'm going to pull up is from my guy, Law. What up, Law? My guy, Law says, I'm not used to this Knicks' new methodical approach to execution or offense. Are you? Bro, we are all getting used to it. Suns, the game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and even that game was winnable. We came back. It's a lot. We should have won that game from the jump. I agree. But the New York Knicks are like the Bret Harts of the NBA. They have been excellent in their execution of the offense. Okay, and contrary to what you may believe, listen, you get announcers from other teams, or you get national commentators who look at the numbers and they'll say, you know what, this New York Knicks team isn't sexy. They don't play a sexy style of offense. Their offense doesn't look like the Sacramento Kings, who have a historic offense of all time, with what they're doing in Sacramento. But at the end of the day, what you got to look at is our ranking. We're up there, no matter what it looks like, or if you think it's not pretty or whatever your critique is of the New York Knicks, you got to talk about them being in the top 10 in offense and defense. That was at the last time I checked. I don't know if that's the case right now, but you got to talk about the turnaround. And what I love to see when I watch this team is I don't see disruption in terms of chaos on the offensive end. What I see when I watch this team is they look like they know the sets they want to get into. They look like they understand when Coach Tibbs is yelling from the sideline, two. They look like they know exactly what he's saying. All right, they know the plays. It hasn't always been that way, where you've had players who look confused on the floor, missing assignments defensively or offensively. I love watching this team play basketball. They're not running into each other. It makes sense. You see, I'm watching this game. Not one time have we heard any comments about the triangle offense. And we're seeing it be played and be run. Several times I'm looking at them like, yo, that's the triangle. That's what the triangle looks like. So to answer your question, man, I'm getting used to it as well. But listen, and from what I get from the question, and even if it's not, I'm the prince of positivity. So I'm going to put a positive spin on it. Okay? Even if it's not, your question to me, I'm floored with it as well. I love the methodical approach to it. I think it's surgical. It always seems as if we get the shots that we want. When we're humming, we're getting to the basket, we're drawing fouls, we're hitting the mid-range floater, or we're hitting that outside three-point shot, or we hitting the guy for the Gotham lob, whether it was any of the wing players, Jules or Mitch. So I'm loving that. I'm loving what I've seen. I've really enjoyed this season watching this team's offense and this team move on a string on defense many nights. So I thank you for that question, my guy Law. Shout out to you. All right, next question from the SB community. We got, who is the better basketball player at this point, Emmanuel Quickly or RJ Barrett? And that question is from Blaze 1BX. Blaze, man, why you always got to have the controversial questions, man? I'm the prince of positivity, so let me frame it like this. Okay, we don't want to put our teams against each other. We don't want to put our guys against each other, but it is a valid question, and I think it's a question you already know the answer to. In terms of the eye test, if we're looking at between these two players, who's had the more impressive, more improved season, obviously it's IQ. IQ has gone through the same highs and lows as RJ Barrett. He's had a period of the season where he slumped and he was really playing poor brand of basketball. His shots weren't falling. Fans were calling for him to be added as part of a trade to bring another player in. And you also got to keep in mind that he was a major piece, as RJ was, that was supposed to be included in the Donovan Mitchell trade. And I said that on a video shortly after that. I said something we got to keep our eye on is how do our young players respond to hearing that they were super close to being included in that Donovan Mitchell trade. They were super close. They heard it from reputable sources that they were going to be pieces that would have been moved had they pulled the trigger on bringing Donovan Mitchell over to New York. And then after that, front office comes out and says, our young guys, they know we love them and it's a family. And that Emmanuel Quickly felt a certain way about that. And RJ Barrett. They all felt a certain way. RJ Barrett just signed his contract. Or he signed his contract, after, we were out of the race for Donovan Mitchell. But both of them, more so IQ came back with a different look on his face to start the season. He's just now getting that joy for playing for the organization. To me, he's just now getting that back, where you see him outwardly just talk about how he's always said he loved New York. He loved the Knicks. But he's like, his expressiveness on the floor is crazy. And I know that comes with winning, because when we had those moments where we were losing and he wasn't on his game, he took a lot of the brunt of that responsibility, which makes his play right now so much more impressive. His play from that point in which he struggled to turn it all the way around and contribute the way he has up until this point in the season, it makes that more impressive. He's not only going to be in a running for Sixth Man of the Year, he's going to be in a running for Most Improved Player, if you ask me. If you also ask me, I think that award should go to Jalen Brunson. Oh, yeah, I'm biased to the New York Knicks. I don't care about what anybody else is doing on any other team. But I think that award should go to Jalen Brunson. If you're talking about an award in which a player has clearly increased his point scoring output, his assist output, then you got to consider Jalen Brunson. If you talk about the number of wins that he's added to a team that wasn't expected to be a playoff team, they had zero expectations. You got to be talking about Jalen Brunson. If you're talking about a player that comes into an environment and changes the culture, elevates the games of the players around them, in short order, gets everybody on the same page and moving in the same direction, and has created multiple win streaks in a season, you got to be talking Jalen Brunson for the Most Improved Player. Stop playing with us. 2 times in 2 years. And throw the Coach of the Year in there, so we can have 2 times in 2 years. So, yeah, to answer your question, IQ, hands down, has improved more than RJ Barrett. All right? Thank you for that question, Blaze1BX. All right? If you're joining me right now, I appreciate you. I just wanted to hop on here real quick. I ain't going to be on here for long. I'm going to tie this thing up in a few moments. We went through giving a shout out to Willis Reed. Legend in New York Knicks history, will never be forgotten. Champion. And man, just a huge loss. So Knicks Nation's hearts are heavy right now. So condolences to his family. We talked a little bit about the big game, the Miami Heat versus the New York Knicks, our rivals. The Knicks should be able to play up and show up and get this victory. That's what we're expecting. And then we talked a little bit about the SB community, and we answered some of the questions that we found in the mailbag. So I would like to include that every now and again to talk about some of the questions that you guys have on the mailbag. But what I want to do right now is just kind of give my parting thoughts on a few topics. Julius mother flipping Randle, okay? The other night, 57 points, career high. This cat was in the zone. He was in the zone. Now, many of you are looking at the screen like, but we lost, okay? Okay, I was on Knicks Twitter. I knew it was going to come. It was a disappointing loss. Trust me, I was like, mother flipper, because it didn't have to be a loss if we would have came out with a little bit more energy and a little bit more fire. And that's where we really lean on our star players to set the tone. And Jalen Brunson did. You know, he started with it. And then Julius Randle kind of picked up. But there were too many going back and forth. And if you ask me, against this Timberwolves team, I think the reason for that was we couldn't corral what's his name? The French center from the other team, big guy that got the big contract. Their center, his name escapes me right now, but Gobert. Gobert always gives the New York Knicks problems. He's always a nightmare matchup for Mitch because not only is he a monster defensively, and he changes our ability to drive to the basket or our ability to take mid-ranges, he changes all of that. And not only that, but he gobbles up the rebounds in the middle. So Mitch is going to be in trouble a few times, whether he's drawing fouls or, he's just big. He's legitimately a problem. He's a max player. All right? So I think that was a key. Now, many of you say, well, offense wasn't the problem. It wasn't just the offense. It was defensively. He contributed on the offensive end a few times, getting N1s, clearing out, stealing those offensive rebounds that we normally would get. All right? So I think I haven't heard much of that. I haven't heard much of his impact early in that game that allowed and freed up space for the role players to hit their shots. When we have to kind of double in and fight for rebounds with Rudy Gobert, that leaves Torian Prince open for the three-point shots for him to go 8 for 8. So I really think that was the key to us losing that game, where he really impacted the game so much that Mitch was in foul trouble a little bit early, and he was just, he's tall, he's strong, and he was getting a few of those buckets early on that helped them gain confidence. And from that point forward, he didn't have to do much offensive output. Him simply being out there kind of trained us to play the game the way they wanted to play for the rest of the game, and it cost us. Even though we scratched and clawed, it takes a lot of energy to scratch and claw back from a hole that we were in against this team. And then at that point, it's a back and forth type of thing. Now we're both working on low stores of energy. All right. And it could be anybody's game. It just so happened to be the Timberwolves game. So that's the NBA. That's one of those things where it's just like, damn, you know what? We know that we have to make adjustments next time. You can't dwell on that. But what I really wanted to do, and I did it on all my social media channels. Check me on Twitter. I'm at SB Knicks, Shir Brilliance Knicks. Check me on Instagram. I'm at SB Knicks on Instagram. Check me here on YouTube, Shir Brilliance Knicks. But what I did was I really posted and I celebrated Julius's accomplishment. 57 points. To be in the top, 6 players in Knicks history to do that is worthy of celebration. And me specifically, I did it specifically, and I was intentional about doing it, even though we had the loss, because I've been one to really stay on Julius. I'm like, damn, from the moment he was spinning and sinning and making all these mistakes and stumbling and bumbling and looking like he has a low NBA IQ, one thing you cannot take away from Julius is that man has never run from the New York Heat. He has never run from the New York spotlight. We've had people who couldn't take it. Case number one across the bridge. When you got players such as Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant who can't take the heat of playing in New York, toughening it out. I heard Kobe once say, why would I jump to another team? If I'm willing to sit here and celebrate championships, then I need to be willing to sit here and go through these losing seasons. It's just the mindset. And it just so happens that Kobe was his mentor. Julius has the same mindset. The season he had when he first got here, although his numbers were respectable, he knew he had a terrible season. And the Knicks fans was just like, yo, why'd you bring this bum in here? And for him to bounce back and have the type of season he had in his second year made you give him the nod. Like, yeah, that's what I want to see. Okay, maybe we were wrong. And then he got the bag. And then there comes that pressure of having the bag. And then you take away some of the players that gave him that cohesion and confidence. and you stick him with players that don't play defense. Now he feels like he got to handle the ball and do everything. And then he had the struggle season and the thumb down season. And we were just like, yeah, we done with this cat. Emotionally, he ain't built for New York. He needs to get up out of here. And we were clear and we were loud and we were arrogant about that statement. Even his wife had to speak up about it, and we were vocal with her. Everybody gets the smoke. And for him to come back after the season where everybody in the fan base is calling for him to be traded and to have this type of season consistently and continuing to raise his game up into the last, part of the regular season. And to continue to have played every game. Last one of 5 players in the NBA to play 82 games. If he makes it to the end of the regular season, having played all of them and not sit. Durable. Available. That's why I posted career high. That's why you take a moment and give that man respect. You want him to keep playing for you? If any of you are supervisors or CEOs or heads of your company, if you want to keep employee morale up, then every now and again you got to let them know. If they close that big deal, you got to celebrate them. If they have record numbers or exceed their markers, you got to celebrate them. You got to acknowledge, like, listen, I see what you're doing for our organization. Keep going. I see what you're doing. We're going to rock with you. I know it was a loss. Overall, it was a loss. But, man, your production put us this close. We're expecting that from you, but we know you could do more. Many of you are just like, no, we're just going to hold this carrot until we see if you can win it all. And then we're going to decide if we give you kudos or not. That's not how you run an organization. If you did that as the CEO of your company, or as the supervisor of your unit, or as the manager of your agency or organization, I guarantee you're going to have somebody who resigns. I guarantee you're going to have multiple people who resign. I guarantee you, and it won't be long before you have human resources doing an investigation. Every now and again, man, you got to break away from whatever your MO is. And for me, that's what it was. I kept telling Julius, I want to see more. I want to see you be smart, man. Ban that spin move, bruh. And he banned it. He be trying to resurrect that mother flipper every 4 or 5 games, but he banned the spin move. Everything that he's asked, that the fans have asked him to do, he's done. And more. So, yeah, I'm going to celebrate, even in a loss, the fact that he exceeded the number of points in a quarter than a legend in Carmelo Anthony, who had the highest point output in a quarter. You need to celebrate something like that. You can't just sweep that under the rug. Oh, it don't matter because it's, it was in a loss. And then you turn around and you celebrate Steph Curry. Or if the Knicks fans don't do it, you let the national media celebrate Steph Curry when he drops 54 on the Knicks and they lost. The Warriors lost that game. But if you watch history talks about 54 points dropped in the Garden. That's all they talk about. Then everybody forgets about whether it was a win or loss. They just talk about the spectacle that Curry put on. Let this man eat. We so accustomed to kicking him that you don't give him props when he shows signs of superstardom. Yeah, I said it, when he shows signs of superstardom. At the end of this season, when Madison Square Garden turns out its lights on the NBA season, we will have an idea how close or if he achieved superstardom status here in the NBA. Julius Randle. At the end of this NBA season, playoffs and regular season, there's a 50-50 chance that when we go into next season, Julius Randle is going to be looked at as an NBA superstar. Everybody got a different definition as to what that means. I don't care. What I think that means is when you start seeing the NBA advertising upcoming events, upcoming season, you're going to start seeing Julius Randle in those highlights. You're going to start seeing his face on the advertisements. When they talk about the NBA in New York on billboards, you're going to start seeing Julius Randle's face. That's what I'm talking about. That's superstar status. Him and Brunson. So kudos for that night. Julius Randle continues to exceed everyone's expectations and to continue to ascend his game. 57 points in front of Knicks fans. Kept us in the game. Had we won that game, it would have been because of Julius. So shout out to you, my guy, continuing to write his name in the history books at MSG. He's going to be on the Mount Rushmore. That man stays here in New York with a New York jersey. He's going to be on the New York Knicks Rushmore, Mount Rushmore for the top Knicks in history. So kudos to Julius Randle. One other thing I wanted to get into real quick, just wanted to talk about ESPN and the rumor of layoffs. All right? Yeah, ESPN is now reporting that there's a possibility of layoffs. Stephen A. Smith said it on his show, No Mercy. Pretty decent podcast. Go check it out. It's KNOW Mercy. Y'all know I'm BSing. If I find any Knicks fans on Stephen A. Smith's podcast. But anyway, he said on his podcast, he talked about the possibility that they're going to have to go through some cuts. And he may be one of them. Okay? Now, he's saying he may be as if he doesn't know. Stephen A. Smith is the current face of ESPN. Nothing happens without him knowing. So for him to say that, you know he caught some wind that his time may be numbered. For him to have started a podcast is also writing on the wall that he may no longer be, although he has 73 million things that he's a part of. But for him to do this and start this new podcast up, it kind of shows you he may be transitioning from what he expects to take place. His pay is the highest at the network. So if they're doing layoffs, this is a good reason to cut his salary. But with that being said, something that I noticed is, I don't know, the focus on JJ Redick and Richard Jefferson seems to be heightening. And Richard Jefferson seems to be making a concerted, intentional effort to keep New York Knicks and New York Knicks fans in his conversations, in his comments. And this is something I'm on Knicks Twitter, and I'm at the top of the mountaintop, and I'm saying, don't fall for the okie doke. Don't listen to that man. Don't fall for the okie doke. And I'm getting mad because Knicks fans ain't listening. They want to go back and forth with this cat. They're like, nah, son, I can't let that lie. And I'm telling you, you're intentionally being drugged in. ESPN, at first, when they went through all those sweeps, they started having few opportunities when Richard Jefferson was on the TV because the New York Knicks started showing signs of winning. You know, and we pulled our viewership from ESPN. So I know that they noticed a dent in the market in terms of the number of eyes that were on ESPN from the New York region. But once we started winning, we started paying attention again because we wanted to see them talk good about us. So that bump went up and they started noticing that we were paying attention now every time you talk good about the Knicks. But they've looped us back in, Knicks fans. We need to control our power, and our power is viewership. They looped us back in enough to keep us engaged. And they're going to be leaning on Richard Jefferson to talk smack about the New York Knicks, to rile us up. And they got Kendrick Perkins to be the pro Knicks commentator. So they're going to keep Perkins. They're going to keep Richard Jefferson because you have a protagonist and an antagonist. And then they're going to put JJ Redick in the middle as the person that's Listen, I'm looking at it from an unbiased perspective, and I could see where you're right and you're right. You see it unfolding. And Stephen A is going to be out of there because there's too many times when Knicks fans don't rock with him. Before, he used to have the buzz. Now he's becoming a caricature of himself. And everybody's kind of tired of him flexing his power. So I think in order to kind of move to the next generation of viewers, and at the same time to kind of move on from Stephen A's world, he's going to be one of the ones that are cut. Mark my words. I'm going to clip and I'm going to repost this thing. This is exactly what's happening. And they will always keep the ladies because they speak knowledgeable enough of basketball. Many times they do a good job. I'm not a big fan of Malika Andrews, but then I'm a fan of Malika Andrews. That's one of the reasons why. But we will see. We will see. I'm going to chop this up, and I'm going to repost it when it happens. Shir, this is one of those moments. Shir, this is one of those moments. Let me hit this comment section before I wrap this thing up real quick and see what y'all are talking. Let me see. Bomb. So we got my guy, Robbie on Talent, says the Miami Heat. I just wanted to restate that. We see you, Robbie. Okay, we see you, Robbie. The ops. We got you, though. Shout out to you. Benjamin Suttles says, what's good, Knicks Nation? What's good, Ben? It's all good. Benjamin Suttles also says, yes, sir, Julius did his damn thing. Yeah, man, we got to acknowledge him. We gotta acknowledge our guys, man. Mid-season, we can't just be fair weather, man. This has been one of the best seasons we've had since that last season two years ago. And this is much more solid, believable, and sustainable. Come on, man. Don't let these people on the outside convince us that we can't enjoy what we're seeing. And that, I mean, we could be critical, but come on, man. So shout out to Julius. Benjamin also says, on point, Shir, I appreciate you, my guy. I appreciate you. All right. He also says Randall has earned my respect. He's worth every penny. Bro, Julius Randle has earned my respect as well. He's 100% earned my respect as well. He's earned his jersey. He's afforded the right, whether you like it or not, to be able to have off games, to be able to do that damn spin move once every 4 games. He's earned that right with what he's been able to do since he's been here. All right? Benjamin Suttles laughs. Also says, we have our own stars. Bro, we have our own stars. 100%. 100% we have them. And I think at the end of this playoff run, we're going to have players on our team or a player on our team who the NBA is going to be considering superstars or a superstar at the end of this NBA season, regular season, and playoffs. All right. So I know we're coming up against the pregame. So let me just wrap this up with my last few thoughts. So I talked about ESPN and JJ Reddit. Let me just talk a little bit about free agent summer discussions. Have y'all picked up on this, or is it me? That there are several experts now talking about free agency and the Knicks. It started with Windhorse, and Windhorse is dying to be right. He's dying to be right. He's dying to have a moment where he can say, I told you so, that an NBA free agent will choose the Knicks because they've turned everything around. The culture, the style of play, winning ways, young players, draft well, assets, all in place. New York Knicks are primed to have that star come through. But I'm noticing more and more people are now talking about the New York Knicks and free agency for this summer and the possibility of who will arrive. And I laugh, I sit back, and I enjoy it. And that's something that you have to enjoy. You have to enjoy the fact that the time has come. The time has come now where media is showing signs of respect for the New York Knicks. showing proof that the New York Knicks are now relevant in the NBA world. And it's a great thing. It is a great thing. The New York Knicks are not even talking about free agency. Knicks fans are not even talking about free agency until they started planting those seeds on social media. We're only responding to what media is planting. When they're planting Jaylen Brown and the fact that he's being very clear with Boston, not only their organization, but their fan base and their community about, listen, he knows that he's a star. He knows that he possibly can take his game to another level. And he knows that the time is about right to voice that and determine if he wants to stay in Boston or move on. So it seems like he's strategically making a move, and in New York has systematically and surgically positioned themselves to be able to move on that opportunity if it presents itself. And the media is all over it. So I love that. I love the fact that media is now starting to have those free agent summer discussions, and they're using our names, and it's not anything that's coming from Knicks fans or from out of our front office. So that's a great thing. And lastly, I just want to point out for tonight, in this big game that's tonight, huge game, my expectation is that we match the energy of the Miami Heat. It's something that's absolutely important that we got to do. We have to bring that same energy for every team. But you almost know that they're going to bring it because the Miami Heat are going to come out with guns a-blazing. And you know they got three-point shooters who, if they catch fire, we could find ourselves in a 22-point hole very quickly. And they also got three-point shooters who can keep building on that 22-point lead. So we absolutely need to come out and play our brand of basketball. We have to be physical. We have to put pressure on the rim. We have to make sure that we draw fouls. We got to be efficient and effective on our three-point shooting. I want to see ball movement. I want to see a nice balance in the offense. I want to see everybody get some touches. I want to see at least 12 points from Grimes tonight. Grimes needs to, get a little bit more involved in the offense. And I'm going to say this to you, Knicks fans, as well. Quentin Grimes is a two-guard. It's our starting two-guard. Lay off that man. He's in year 2. I know the expectation for him is high because you know what he's capable of. You know what his game says. But if we're winning games and his biggest contributions have been defensively, when we're losing games, it's not necessarily as a result of him being in the lineup and not necessarily producing offensively. We could use his offense, but our offense is still humming. And that man still plays his heart out on defense. Now, have there been some players in some games where you look at you, it's like, listen, I don't know who got the seasoning, but Grimes is getting cooked. Yes, there has been games where he's gotten cooked. But when you're in the NBA, there are going to be games where everybody gets cooked. You can't measure him and put him down because Dame cooked him. Dame cooks everybody. You can't put that man down because he comes up against a player who has a great night. You in the NBA, any player can have a great night. Taurean Prince. You acting like this man is in his 3rd or his 4th year and that we're expecting that jump from him. Give that man some time to grow into his game, to grow into his confidence, to grow into his consistency as a starter for a full NBA season and his new playoffs. I guarantee you this man is going to make his name in the playoffs. Quentin Grimes is big time. Quentin Grimes is a primetime player. And it's going to be the playoffs that he kills a lot of teams. And I'm saying a lot of teams because I expect us to get through a couple of rounds. First round and second round. We're going to be in the conference finals, and I'm hoping that we represent in the Eastern Conference. And if we do, it's going to be as a result of a major role that Quentin Grimes has played. Back off of my guy, Quentin Grimes. All right, grime scene, grime time. All right, and that's about it, folks. So I thank you for sticking with me. We're going to enjoy this game. Listen, my message to you is enjoy the game, but enjoy this journey. You know, I think a lot of times a lot of us can get caught up and we're arguing with each other on Twitter talking about, well, don't count that he got 57 because you got to be a winner. We got to, come on, man, what you doing? I understand we got to hold them accountable. Do that for like 2 minutes, but give that man props. Because if you notice something, and I notice every time, they don't give New York players props. The only other, and I say they being other NBA stars. In the playoffs last year, you know everybody was glued. I mean, 2 years ago, everybody was glued to the screen because that was the first time this generation saw playoff MSG. And they thought their arenas was nice. Oh, yeah. You know, Golden State gets kind of loud, and look at these other arenas, and they got hyped fans, but you never seen the playoff atmosphere like you do in New York. And they're watching that TV. They want to play in that. That's why it was good to have Trae Young in that environment, because you could see the Knicks fans' passion for their team and passion against an agitator like Trae Young. So I don't care what those other teams were doing and what playoff series they were engaged in. They were forced to look at New York. So none of them, they don't want to see New York come up because we're going to steal eyes. We're going to steal free agents. If you see how we are when we're successful, everybody's going to want to come here. The worst nightmare for every other team and their stars is for New York to be up. The worst nightmare is for Gotham City to rise and be good and get a couple of them things. I want 3 rings. I want 3 rings before 2030. I want 3 rings in the Garden. 3. But right now, they're not going to give us any wins. We got to take every one of them. So Knicks fans, don't be the ones, in addition to them, taking away any credit, kudos, or moments where you can motivate and inspire your own team. Don't be the ones with them, not giving them kudos, not letting them know, like, listen, we see you when you do historic stuff in front of us. We could celebrate Kobe Bryant dropping 61 on Wilson Chandler, stand up and give him a round of applause, but this man gets 57 and you can't give your own guy a round of applause? You wildin'. So, like, check what we doing as Knicks fans. Stop getting all the elite. You get foofy as hell already, and we ain't won nothing yet. And that's the excuse you gave to him. Oh, well, we going to applaud that we ain't win nothing yet. We ain't win that game. Stop bugging. We want this team to go into the playoffs at maximum confidence. And the New York Knicks fans got to be part of that. We got to be equally as disruptive and intimidating for the opponents to come into Madison Square Garden. It needs to be clear-cut and down the middle that if we got a team who has fans with opposing jerseys, we can't hear them. A couple of times this season, I've heard Laker fans take over. A couple of times this season, I've heard Miami Heat fans or Boston fans or Brooklyn fans take over the Garden. So before y'all criticize and decide to take some credit for this man that did something historic, make sure you don't let no opposing fans take over the Garden or have their voices heard. Do that. Do that tonight. Are we playing out? I don't know if we play at home. If we're playing at home tonight, I better not hear no Heat fans. Y'all want to criticize Julius because we didn't win that game, but he scored 57? Criticize yourself if we hear Miami Heat chants tonight. Do that. And I'm going to hop on after the game, win or lose, just to see and just to talk about it. So enjoy this journey, man. Enjoy your team, man. and enjoy these Knicks. Enjoy this game. Miami versus the Miami Heat. Miami Heat fan that was in the chat, shout out to you. But you catching this loss tonight. Come back tomorrow when I do Knicks Deli. All right? I'll have a trash segment and I'll have heat in it. Nah, shout out to you, man. Thank you for joining and engaging. Shout out to everybody that was here. Listen, enjoy this game and keep this in mind. Same thing applies to life as applies to our team. If there's no struggle, there's no progress. I thank you for rocking with me. This is Shir from Shir Brilliance Knicks. I'm out. Peace.
Victory. I just got another victory. Opposition said they sick of me. We turn their future to history. They try to hit me, they missing me.